They say Poveglia Island is a place God forgot, a patch of land floating in the Venetian lagoon, wrapped in fog so thick it feels like memory instead of weather. When you grow up hearing ghost stories, you learn to laugh at most of them. Kids in America share urban legends about abandoned houses or haunted bridges. But in Italy, the legends have weight. The locals don't tell stories to entertain, they tell them to warn. And when they talk about Poveglia, their voices drop, their eyes dart to the water, and they speak like the island might hear them and take offense. Poveglia was the place Venice sent the dying. Plague victims too sick to cure, too contagious to keep. They were loaded onto barges by the hundreds and ferried to the island to spend their final hours choking in fever, surrounded by the screams of people who knew they were already dead. Later came the asylum, the lobotomies, the patients tied to beds, the doctor who performed his experiments until the voices he claimed didn't exist drove him to the top of the bell tower, where he either jumped or was thrown. They removed the bell after that, but fishermen still swear they hear it ring on foggy nights. I didn't go to Poveglia for thrills. I didn't even go for proof. I went because grief is a kind of haunting too, and losing my son hollowed out the part of me that used to believe the world made sense. After Ethan died, the world turned quiet. Too quiet. I'd wake in the middle of the night thinking I heard his small footsteps running down the hallway, or the soft humming he used to make when he colored in his sketchbooks. Once I swore I heard him whispering to me in the dark, not saying words, just breathing near me. People told me it was the stress, the trauma, my brain replaying moments it couldn't bear to let go of. But deep down, part of me wondered if there was somewhere, some place where the line between the living and the dead got thin enough that a parent could hear their child again. That wonder led me to Venice, to a bartender with tired eyes who told me about Marco, the only man out of the few who still knew how to reach Poveglia without drawing police attention. "You don't want to go," the bartender said. "Even people who don't believe in ghosts feel something there." But the warnings only made the pull stronger. 2 nights later, I was on a small, beat-up motorboat with Marco at the wheel. It was 1:30 in the morning. The moon was a sliver behind thick clouds that made the water look like oil. Venice's glowing skyline faded behind us until it looked like a distant mirage. Ahead, the darkness bent into a shape, a bruised outline rising out of the lagoon. Poveglia. Marco didn't speak the entire ride. The only sound was the engine struggling against the still water. When the island finally took shape in the fog, I saw broken trees leaning like twisted fingers and decaying buildings with windows like empty eye sockets staring back at us. He slowed the boat near a crumbling stone wall, half swallowed by vines. "I'll wait 1 hour," he said without looking at me. "If you're not back, I leave." "You're serious?" He nodded once. "The island doesn't like visitors." Something in his voice was heavier than fear, more like experience. I stepped off the boat. The stone was slick beneath my boots. The air smelled like wet soil and rust, and something faint, something sour, like old sickness trapped in the walls. When I glanced back, Marco was already pulling away, hovering a few feet off the shore, eyes locked on me, jaw tight. The moment he disappeared behind a patch of fog, I felt it. The silence. Not peaceful silence, not natural silence. This was a hollow silence, a listening silence, like the island was waiting. I pulled out my flashlight. Its beam cut a thin white line through the dark, illuminating broken pathways, wild weeds, and the remains of old stone arches. Buildings loomed nearby, cracked open like rotten teeth. I started recording. 2:08 a.m., Poveglia Island. I whispered into the camera for no one but myself. Approaching the old asylum structures. Poveglia. My own voice sounded wrong, too loud, too alone. I moved through the first building cautiously. Dust clung to the air. The floors were covered with broken tiles, plaster, bits of rusted metal. Graffiti lined the walls, names, dates, symbols, warnings left by people braver or dumber than me. Nothing happened. No whispers, no footsteps, just my breathing and the crunch beneath my boots. The second building was worse, rooms full of collapsed beams and overturned hospital beds, but still no ghostly encounters. My tension eased slightly. Maybe the stories were exaggerated. Maybe grief was distorting everything. Then I reached building 3. I stepped inside and felt it immediately, a shift in the air, like walking through an invisible curtain. The temperature dipped, my skin prickled. It felt like something was standing in front of me even before I took another step. I raised my flashlight. The moment the beam touched the floor, I heard it. A child crying. I froze. The sound wasn't echoing from another room. It wasn't distant. It was in the same space as me, sharp, raw sobbing, the kind that comes from fear so deep it shakes the whole body. My chest tightened, my mind raced. There was no logical explanation for a child being on this island in the middle of the night, unless... My heart twisted. Ethan. The thought hit me like a punch, completely involuntary. Hello. My voice was barely a whisper. The crying stopped instantly. The silence that followed hurt my ears. I could hear my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs. I turned, ready to leave, ready to tell myself this was just my brain replaying sounds it couldn't let go of. I took one step toward the entrance, and the crying started again, right beside my ear. No space, no distance. It was as if a child was standing so close that their mouth was inches from my skin. I swung around, breath catching in my throat, flashlight trembling, and it died. Total darkness swallowed me. Not dimness, not shadows, complete black, thick and suffocating. I stood frozen, ears straining, eyes wide even though there was nothing to see. And then I heard breathing, soft, shaky, right next to my face, my entire body locked. I couldn't inhale, couldn't exhale, couldn't even force my fingers to move. The breath brushed my cheek again, cold, damp, trembling, like a child who'd been crying for a long time. I don't know how long I stood like that. It could have been 2 seconds or 2 minutes. Time didn't feel real. The island felt like it had swallowed me. Then I whispered the name I hadn't spoken in months. Ethan. I didn't plan to say it. It spilled out of me like a wound breaking open. The breathing stopped. Silence again, sharp, hungry. Then the voice came. Daddy. It was small, broken, but twisted, stretched, warped, like multiple voices layered awkwardly together. The pitch was wrong, too slow, too deep, like something trying to imitate a child without understanding how. My heart cracked. Fear wrapped around grief until I couldn't tell them apart. You're not him, I whispered, voice shaking violently. You're not my son. Something brushed my wrist, cold fingers, small fingers, clutching, holding, pulling. I jerked back instinctively, but the grip tightened. The cold sank into my skin, numbing it. Then right beside my ear, a new voice hissed, low, rough, not a child. Stay. The word felt like it was rotting as it entered the air. I panicked. I tore my wrist away hard enough to stumble. My hand dove into my pocket, clawing for my phone. I fumbled for the flashlight button with shaking fingers. The screen lit up. The light burst into the darkness. The grip vanished. I stood in the middle of the room, alone, chest heaving, breath tearing in and out of my lungs. But the island wasn't done, because on the wall to my left, a small handprint was smeared in the dust, low to the ground, fresh, like a child had pressed their hand there seconds before the light returned. My skin crawled, my stomach twisted. For a long moment, all I could do was stare at that handprint, unable to move, unable to think. Then survival kicked in. I backed out of the room slowly, never taking my eyes off the spot where the breathing had been. With every step, the air felt heavier, like I was pushing against something, like the island didn't want me to leave. When I finally crossed the threshold into open air, it felt like taking my first real breath in minutes. I didn't look back, not once. I kept the phone's flashlight pointed at the ground, refusing to let it slide into the corners where shadows pooled. The path back to the shore felt twice as long and 3 times as dark. Every broken window felt like an eye watching me. Every rustle of leaves felt like footsteps trailing behind. When I reached the edge, Marco was waiting, engine running full throttle, eyes wide in the dim light. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The terror on my face was enough. He didn't wait for me to sit. He just hit the throttle the second my foot touched the boat. The island shrank behind us, swallowed by fog so quickly it felt like it dissolved. Back in my hotel room, I convinced myself it was grief, hallucination, suggestion from the thousands of stories I'd consumed. I even started to feel embarrassed until I played the audio on my camera. The crying was there, clear, close. Then my whisper, "Ethan." Then silence. Then, "Daddy." Not my son's voice, not even close. Distorted, layered, wrong. I deleted the file instantly and sat there shaking, staring at the blank screen like it might whisper again if I looked away. I left Venice that morning without saying goodbye to anyone. I tried to go back to life, tried to sleep, tried to forget, but sometimes late at night, in the quietest moments when the world goes still and the darkness closes in, I swear I hear it again, a soft, trembling breath brushing my ear, a tiny sob, a voice whispering a name I will never say again in the dark. Not because I stopped loving my son, but because I finally understand. Whatever cried beside me in Building 3, whatever held my wrist, whatever called me daddy, it wasn't a child, it wasn't Ethan, it wasn't human, it belongs to Poveglia. And Poveglia is still waiting for someone to stay.